Picture this. You're sitting across from him at dinner, and he's telling you about his dreams, his past hurts, his plans for the future. He's holding your hand. He's looking at you like you're the only woman who could possibly understand him. And in that moment, something inside you shifts. You feel needed. You feel like maybe, finally, someone sees you. You feel like you could be the woman who changes everything for him. But then, somewhere in the back of your mind, a small voice whispers, something doesn't add up. You're not imagining things. That feeling, that sense that something is off, that the intensity doesn't match the consistency, that his words don't line up with his actions, that's not you being paranoid. That's not you being too damaged from past relationships. That's your wisdom trying to protect you. And today, we're going to give you the language for exactly what you're sensing, the psychology behind why it's happening, and most importantly, the steps to protect yourself without becoming cold, without becoming cynical, and without closing your heart to real love. Some men don't come to love. They come to take. They come because they sense something in you, your stability, your depth, your willingness to pour yourself into another person's life, and they know how to access it. This isn't to make you bitter. This is to make you discerning. There's a massive difference. Bitterness closes your heart. Discernment opens your eyes. And at this stage of your life, with everything you've built, everything you've learned, everything you've survived, you deserve both clarity and openness at the same time. Before we go deeper, I want to ask you for something. If this video speaks to you, and I think it will, please like it. Leave a comment and tell me, what's the one thing you've given up for a man that you regret losing? Because I read every comment, and women like you are building something powerful here. Your stories matter. Your awareness matters. And when you share, you're giving another woman permission to wake up too. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you never miss a video that's designed specifically for you, the woman over 60 who wants love but not at the cost of herself. Hit the notification bell so these videos come straight to you. And if this lands deep, send a super thanks. It lets me know I'm reaching the right people, and it helps me keep making content exactly like this. Here's what this video is going to do. We're going to name 7 specific things that women over 60 are most vulnerable to giving away. We're going to show you exactly how these patterns play out. What he says, when he disappears, how he pulls you back in. We're going to decode the psychology behind each one, the specific way it triggers your heart, and why men who are looking to take specifically exploit these beautiful qualities in you. And then, most importantly, we're going to tell you exactly what to do. Not what to say to make him change. What to do to protect yourself. How to set boundaries without guilt. How to observe his consistency without chasing. How to walk away when it's time, and why walking away is not a failure. It's a victory. Let's begin. Number 1. Never abandon your own life to revolve around his. This is where it always starts, and this is where older women get hurt the most. He comes into your life, and suddenly there's a reason to rearrange everything. You cancel your book club because he texts and wants to see you. You postpone the painting project you've been excited about for months because he needs someone to talk to about his work stress. You start keeping your phone closer, checking it more often, making sure you're available the moment he reaches out. Your friends notice. You're different, they say. We miss you, they say. But it doesn't feel like abandonment to you. It feels like choosing love. It feels like finally being with someone who matters enough to shift your entire world around. Here's what's actually happening. You're doing the emotional labor of 2 people while he does nothing. He's not rearranging his life. He's not canceling plans to be with you. He's texting you at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday to see if you can come over, and you're rearranging your sleep schedule because you want him to know you're reliable. He mentions offhand that he has trouble sleeping, and suddenly you're thinking about him at night, worrying about him, reshaping your peace to fit his problems. This is what's called the service dynamic, and it works on women like you because you have a lifetime of learned responsibility. You've taken care of people. You know how to be there. You know how to show up. The difference is, at 60, you should be choosing who gets your presents, not defaulting it to whoever asks loudest. Here's the psychological truth. Men who are looking to take want a woman whose life revolves around them because it answers a deep need they have. They need to feel important. They need to feel like they matter more than anything else in your world. It's not really about love. It's about control disguised as romance. When your entire life is orbiting his needs, his mood, his availability, you become predictable. You become manageable. And most importantly, you lose your power. Because the moment someone else's life is the center of your world, you stop being able to think clearly about that person. This hits women over 60 particularly hard for specific reasons. You've spent decades knowing how to nurture others. You've raised children, maintained friendships, held families together. You've built a life around the idea that your value comes from what you do for others. So when a man comes along and suddenly seems to need that from you so intensely, it feels like proof that you still matter. It feels like the life skill you've developed most, the ability to hold someone else's life together, finally has a use again. It feels like purpose. But purpose given freely is beautiful. Purpose given out of fear of abandonment is the beginning of losing yourself. What to do? Notice where you're rearranging. Be specific. Write it down if you need to. Are you canceling things you wanted to do? Are you keeping your schedule flexible just in case he reaches out? Are you thinking about him constantly when you're supposed to be thinking about your own life? The first boundary is this. Your life continues exactly as it was. You have plans, you keep them. You have friends, you see them. You have hobbies, interests, and commitments. They stay. A man who is genuinely interested in building something with you will fit into your life. He won't ask you to put your life on pause. And if he does, if he makes you feel guilty for having your own priorities, that's not a man asking for love. That's a man asking for control. The test is simple. When you say no to him because you have something else planned, does he respect that or does he make you feel bad? Does he support your friendships or does he make subtle comments about how much time you're spending with other people? Does he understand that your own peace, your own joy, your own life is not negotiable, or does he act wounded when you won't cancel things for him? A man who wants to build with you doesn't need you to disappear. He wants to add to your life, not replace it. This doesn't mean you're selfish for protecting your own life. It means you're wise. It means you've learned that the people who actually love you don't ask you to shrink. They ask you to stay exactly as big as you are. Number 2, never give him financial support or access to your money. Here's a scenario that plays out more often than women want to admit. You've worked for decades. You've built something. Maybe it's savings. Maybe it's a house. Maybe it's a retirement fund. And then he comes along and somewhere along the way, he mentions money. Maybe he's going through a rough patch. Maybe his business needs capital. Maybe he has a debt he's embarrassed about. And he looks at you with those eyes that say, "I'm telling you this because I trust you. And because you're someone who has always solved problems, because you know what it's like to struggle, you do it. You loan him money." But here's what actually happens. The loan doesn't get repaid, or it gets repaid late, with excuses, with apologies that feel like performances. Or, and this is the most common scenario, it never comes up again. He acts like it didn't happen. You bring it up awkwardly because you don't want to seem mercenary, and he gets defensive. "I can't believe you're bringing this up," he says. "I thought you understood." Or, "Money isn't what this is about." But it's always what it was about. It was always a test. And you failed it by proving you'd sacrifice your security for his comfort. This might escalate. Maybe he borrows your car. Maybe he asks to move in, and suddenly your bills are higher and he's not contributing. Maybe he asks to put his name on something. Maybe he wants a joint account. Each time, there's a reason. Each time, it sounds reasonable in the moment. Each time, you're proving something to him, that you're willing to put your security in his hands. Let me be very clear about something. A man who is genuinely interested in building a life with you does not take from your financial security. Full stop. He may go through hard times, everyone does, but a man of integrity figures out his own way through hard times. He doesn't ask the woman he loves to jeopardize her future for his present comfort. And if he does ask, and you say no, and he makes you feel guilty, that's not love. That's extraction. The psychology is straightforward and it's brutal. Money is power. When you give him access to your money, you give him power over you. And men who are looking to extract know this. They know that the moment you financially invested in him, you're emotionally invested in justifying that investment. You start telling yourself stories about why it was worth it. You start making excuses for why he hasn't repaid you. You start believing that if you just give a little more, if you just believe a little harder, it'll all work out and you'll feel validated. That's not how this works. That's how financial abuse works. This is particularly brutal for women over 60 because many of you are in a position where financial security is not abstract. It's real. It's the difference between a comfortable retirement and anxiety about money in your later years. It's the safety net you've built for yourself specifically because you wanted to be independent, to never have to rely on anyone else again. And the moment you breach that boundary, the moment you give a man access to your financial security, you've given away the one thing that was supposed to keep you free. What to do? Make this a hard rule right now, before you even meet someone. Your money is off limits, not because you're stingy, not because you don't have a generous heart, but because your future is non-negotiable. If he needs money, he figures it out. That's not your problem to solve. If he asks you to help him financially, the answer is no. And if he pushes, if he makes you feel guilty, if he tells you that real love means helping someone even when it hurts you, that's the moment you know he's not looking to build with you. He's looking to build off of you. This doesn't mean never being generous. It means being generous with your time, your attention, your wisdom, your presence, things that replenish, and things that you can give endlessly without losing yourself. It means keeping your money sacred. It means understanding that you earned every single cent of what you have, and no man gets to access it based on his circumstances or his charm or his neediness. The test is this: if he never asks for money, great. But if he does, or if it ever comes up and you say no, does he accept it gracefully or does he turn it into a referendum on your love? A man who respects you will never make you feel guilty for protecting your financial security. That's not because he's rich. It's because he understands that your independence is sacred. This doesn't mean you're cold. It means you're protected. And at this stage of your life, protection is love. Number 3. Never become his therapist, his life coach, or his emotional dump. This happens so subtly that you won't even notice it's happening until you're 6 months deep and you realize you haven't had a single conversation with this man that wasn't about his problems. It starts innocently. He's had a hard day at work, so you listen. You're good at listening. You ask questions. You help him think through it. He appreciates this. He tells you that you're the only person who really understands him. He tells you that talking to you makes everything better. So the next time something goes wrong, he comes to you again, and again, and again, until every conversation becomes an opportunity for him to process his emotions, his work stress, his family drama, his past trauma, his fears about the future. And you do what you've always done. You hold space, you validate, you ask the right questions, you help him see things from a different angle. You become his sounding board, his confidant, his emotional support animal. You're doing the work of a therapist without any of the professional boundaries and without any reciprocity. Because here's what you don't notice. He never asks about you. Or he asks, but when you start to talk about your life, your concerns, your challenges, something happens. The conversation gets redirected back to him, or he seems uncomfortable. Or he gives advice that doesn't quite land because he's not really listening. Or, and this is the cruelest version, he uses what you've shared against you later. This is called emotional labor imbalance, and it's one of the most insidious dynamics in relationships with men who are looking to take. Here's why it works. Women over 60 have often spent their entire lives being the emotional caretaker. You were the one your friends called when they were upset. You were the one in your marriage or relationships who managed everyone's feelings. You developed this extraordinary capacity to hold other people's pain without falling apart yourself. So when a man comes along and suddenly needs this from you intensely, it feels like finally being valued for what you're best at. It feels like mattering. And the more he relies on you emotionally, the more indispensable you feel. But here's the trap. The more you become his emotional support, the less he has to do his own inner work. And the less he does his own inner work, the more he stays broken. And the more he stays broken, the more he needs you to help him feel okay. This isn't love, this is dependency. And dependency is not the same as commitment. The psychology here is about control through need. A man who has turned you into his therapist knows that you'll stay because you'll feel responsible for his well-being. You'll think, if I leave, he won't have anyone to talk to. His mental health will suffer. I'll have abandoned him when he needs me most. This is how men with no actual intention of showing up for you keep you around. They make you feel like you're the only thing holding them together. And because you're a woman who cares, you'll stay in that role, exhausting yourself emotionally to keep him functional. What to do? Create a hard boundary around emotional labor. You are not his therapist. You are not his life coach. You are not the repository for his trauma, his anxiety, his regrets, or his fears. You can listen, but you cannot carry. The moment a conversation starts to become about his processing his feelings at the expense of the relationship moving forward, you need to say this: I care about you, and I also think you might benefit from talking to a professional about this. This is bigger than what I can hold. And here's the important part. When you set that boundary, watch what happens. Does he respect it, or does he make you feel guilty? Does he say something like, "No one understands me the way you do," which is really him saying, "Don't take my therapist away from me"? Does he get defensive? Does he tell you that you're abandoning him? If he does any of those things, he's not looking for a partner. He's looking for a caretaker. And you've already given enough of your life to taking care of people. The test is this: how much of your energy is spent managing his emotional state? How much of your mental space is taken up by his problems? How much of the conversation revolves around what he needs from you versus what you both want to build together? If the answer is most of it, then you're not in a relationship. You're in a job, and you're not getting paid. This doesn't mean you're heartless for refusing to be his emotional dump. It means you're healthy. It means you understand that you cannot pour from an empty cup and that pouring out endlessly into someone who never refills you is slow-motion abandonment of yourself. Number 4, never make excuses for his inconsistency or disappearing acts. This is the dance that mature women become experts at without even realizing it. He's present and attentive for a few days. He texts regularly, he makes plans, he shows up, and you think, okay, this is it, this is real. But then, without explanation, he disappears. A day goes by without contact, then 2, then he reappears with an excuse. I've been swamped at work. My phone died and I didn't have a charger. I've been dealing with some family stuff. I went offline because I needed to clear my head. And because you're someone who understands that life is complicated, because you've had busy periods yourself, because you have compassion, you accept the excuse. You believe him. You tell yourself that it's not personal. You tell yourself that he's dealing with things you don't know about. But here's what's actually happening. He's testing your tolerance. He's seeing how long he can disappear before you get upset. He's seeing if you'll make excuses for him, and every single time you do, he learns that he can go a little longer next time. So the pattern escalates. He disappears for a week. You hear from him with a reason. You accept it. Next time, he's gone for 2 weeks. And you're starting to feel anxious, but you tell yourself, he's got a lot going on. And he does reach back out eventually, which confirms that it wasn't abandonment. It was just him being busy. Right? Wrong. A man who is genuinely interested in building a life with you does not consistently disappear and reappear. Full stop. Life gets busy for everyone. Everyone has stressful periods. But a man of integrity finds a way to maintain contact. He might text less, but he texts. He might not be able to see you, but he still lets you know he's thinking of you. He doesn't leave you wondering if he's still interested. He doesn't make you anxious about the status of the relationship every other week. What he's actually doing is something called intermittent reinforcement. This is a psychological principle that's incredibly powerful, and men who are looking to keep you hooked without fully committing know about it. It works like this. If he was always attentive, you'd get used to it and the attention would lose its power. But if he's unpredictable, sometimes present, sometimes absent, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, your brain becomes obsessed with figuring out what makes him present. You start trying to be better to earn his attention. You start analyzing everything you do. You start wondering what you did wrong when he disappears. Your nervous system stays activated. And the moment he does reappear and give you attention, it feels like a reward so intense that it overrides all the pain of the disappearing. This is exactly how slot machines work. And you are not a slot machine. You're a woman over 60 who deserves consistency. Why this specifically destroys women over 60? Because you remember what consistency felt like. Maybe you were in a marriage for decades where you could rely on your partner being there. Or maybe you built a life where you learned to be consistent with yourself, showing up for your commitments, following through on your promises, honoring what you say you'll do. So when a man is inconsistent, it doesn't feel normal to you. It feels painful. It makes you anxious. And because you can't understand why someone would be inconsistent, you start to blame yourself. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm asking too much. Maybe he needs space and I'm not giving it to him. You rewrite his inconsistency as your fault. What to do? Stop making excuses for him. This is hard because you've probably spent your entire life making excuses for the people you love. But this is the moment you stop. When he disappears, you notice it. When he gives you a reason, you accept it once. But then you pay attention. Does he disappear again? Does this become a pattern? And here's the key. You don't confront him about it. You don't say, "Why do you keep disappearing?" You simply observe. You watch the pattern, and you ask yourself, can I build a life with someone I can't rely on? And the answer, if you're honest, is no. The test is this. How many times has he disappeared and come back with an excuse? More than once? Then this isn't an anomaly. This is his pattern. And if this is his pattern, then you cannot trust him. And if you cannot trust him, then there is no foundation for anything real. Here's what you say internally, and maybe even out loud. I understand you've been busy. I also understand that consistency matters to me, and right now I'm not seeing the consistency I need. So I'm going to step back. And then you do. You don't make it a threat. You don't say it to make him feel bad or to manipulate him into changing. You say it because it's true, and then you act on it. You stop reaching out. You stop being available the moment he reappears. You let him feel what it's like when you're the one who's inconsistent. This doesn't mean you're punishing him. It means you're honoring the truth. Consistency is a basic requirement for trust, and trust is a basic requirement for love. Number 5, never accept love that only shows up when it's convenient for him. This is subtly different from disappearing acts, and it's where the real heartbreak happens for mature women. He reaches out, but only on his terms. He might come over late at night, but he never invites you out during the day. He calls you when he's feeling lonely, but he doesn't reach out to ask how your day was. He wants to spend time with you, but only when it fits into his schedule. He says he cares about you, but he never makes plans in advance. Everything is spontaneous, which feels romantic at first, like he just can't wait to see you. But what it actually is convenient. It's love that asks nothing of him. It's love that requires no sacrifice, no consistency, no real showing up. And you start to tell yourself that at least it's something. At least he's calling. At least he wants to see you. At least you're not alone. So you rearrange your life to be available when he decides he wants you. You keep your evenings open. You make sure your phone is near you. You don't make other plans because you never know when he'll reach out. And every time he does, there's a little surge of validation. He was thinking of me, he chose me, he wanted to see me, but he didn't plan ahead to see you, he just reached out when it was convenient. Here's the truth. Convenience is not love. Love shows up when it's inconvenient. Love plans ahead. Love prioritizes. Love says, I want you to know that I'm going to be here on Tuesday night, and I'm blocking off my calendar for you. Love doesn't say, I'll call you if I'm in the mood. A man who only shows up when it's convenient for him is not building a life with you. He's accessing you. And there's a massive difference. Accessing someone means taking what you need when you need it and leaving when you're done. Building a life with someone means saying, your time matters to me so much that I'm going to make space for you even when other things are asking for my attention. Why this works on women over 60? Because you've spent decades being the convenient one. You've been the person who's always available. You've been flexible. You've adjusted your plans. You've made space. And you know how to do this so well that it doesn't even feel hard anymore. It's just what you do. So when a man acts like your availability is a gift and not an expectation, it feels good. It feels like you're finally the priority. But the difference is whether he's choosing you because he values you or he's choosing you because you're there. The way to tell the difference. Look at whether he ever does anything that's inconvenient for him to be with you. Does he ever rearrange his schedule? Does he ever cancel something to see you? Does he ever ask you out to something that requires planning and commitment? Or is everything always on his terms, at his time, in his way? What to do? Start asking directly, not in an accusatory way, but genuinely. I'd love to see you next Thursday. Does that work for you? And then actually wait to see if he commits in advance or if he says something non-committal like, maybe I'll let you know. If he consistently doesn't commit, if he consistently wants everything to be spontaneous, if he consistently expects you to be available to him but is never available to you in advance, then you have your answer. This is not someone who is building with you. This is someone who is using you as his backup plan for when he's bored or lonely. The test is this. Do you know when you'll see him next, or are you always waiting to hear from him? Can you make plans knowing he'll be there, or do you have to keep your schedule flexible just in case he decides he wants to see you? If you can't rely on him being there, then he doesn't actually want a relationship. He wants convenience. And here's what you do. You stop being convenient. You make plans, real plans, with other people, doing things you love, and you stop being available the moment he reaches out. You're only available at the times you've decided in advance that you're available. And when he calls spontaneously and you can't see him, you don't feel guilty. You don't try to squeeze him in. You simply say, I'd love to see you, and I'm available on Thursday. Does that work for you? If it doesn't work, then you move on. Because a man who can't plan ahead to see you doesn't deserve to be with you. This doesn't mean you're rigid or cold. It means you're teaching him through your actions that your time is valuable. And the only people who get access to your time are the people who treat it with respect. I need you to understand something crucial right now before we continue. What we're talking about here, the patterns of inconsistency, the disappearing, the accessing without building, the emotional labor without reciprocity, these are all versions of the same underlying mechanism, and that mechanism is called intermittent reinforcement combined with future faking. Let me break this down because it's the foundation of how men who are looking to keep women who have so much to give, stuck in patterns that slowly erode their peace. Here's how it works. He gives you just enough to keep you hoping. A text that makes you feel seen. A conversation that feels intimate. A moment where he talks about the future like you're in it. When we go to Italy together, once I get through this rough patch, when things settle down, he plants these seeds of possibility. And because you're a woman who has spent her life believing in people, who knows how to nurture things, who understands that real growth takes time, you water these seeds. You tend to them. You believe that eventually they'll grow into something real. But the seeds are never planted with the intention of growing. They're planted to keep you occupied. They're planted to keep your hope alive so that you'll stay. Because the moment you stop hoping, the moment you stop believing that he's going to change, the moment you lose faith that it's going to work out, you'll leave. And he doesn't want you to leave because you're useful to him. You're solving something for him. Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's the feeling that he matters. Maybe it's the fact that you're doing emotional labor that would otherwise require him to do inner work. Whatever it is, you're filling a need. And the cruelest part is this. This isn't necessarily something he's doing consciously. He might not even realize that he's keeping you on a hook with words about the future while his actions stay exactly the same. He might genuinely believe that he's trying. He might genuinely believe that circumstances are keeping him from showing up the way he wants to. But belief and action are different things. And at a certain point, his reasons don't matter anymore. What matters is whether his actions match his words. And in these patterns, they don't. They never do. This isn't about blaming you. This is about awareness. You're not naive for believing him. You're not foolish for hoping. You're human, but you're a human who has learned, through this video, to recognize the mechanism. You now have words for what you've been sensing. And awareness changes everything. Number 6, never allow him to rewrite your history or question your reality. This one is subtle, and by the time you notice it, it's often too late. It starts with small things. You remember a conversation a certain way, and he corrects you. That's not what I said. You're misremembering. Or he did something that hurt you, and when you bring it up, he says, I never said that, or you're being dramatic, or why are you bringing up old stuff? And because you're a woman who's lived long enough to know that memory is complex and subjective, you second-guess yourself. Maybe you did misremember. Maybe you are being oversensitive. Maybe he didn't mean it the way you took it. But then it escalates. You express a concern about the relationship, and he says, this is all in your head. We're fine. You tell him something hurt you, and he says, you always twist things. You always make it worse than it is. You try to talk about patterns you've noticed, and he says, you're paranoid. You're imagining things. If you weren't so anxious, you'd see things clearly. And the worst part is when he compares you to his ex. My ex used to do this same thing. She was always reading into things and making things bigger than they were. What's happening here is called gaslighting, and it is one of the most damaging dynamics that exists. It's not overt abuse. It's not him yelling or being aggressive. It's subtle. It's reasonable sounding. It's him suggesting that your perception of reality is wrong, that your memory is unreliable, that your instincts are off. And the more he does this, the more you start to doubt yourself. You start to ask him how you should interpret things. You start to wonder if what you're feeling is real, or if you're being crazy, or too sensitive, or making things out to be worse than they are. This is particularly dangerous for women over 60, because you've spent your entire life having to trust your own judgment. You've made decisions, you've navigated complex situations, you've learned to trust your gut. So when someone comes along and systematically suggests that your perception is wrong, it's deeply disorienting. It makes you feel like you're losing your mind. And the cruelest part is that while you're busy trying to prove to him that your reality is valid, you're losing connection with your own intuition. You're looking to him to confirm what you know, instead of knowing it yourself. Here's the psychology. Gaslighting works because it makes you dependent on the gaslighter for validation. If you can't trust your own perception, then you have to rely on him to tell you what's real. And once you're in that place, you can't leave. Because what if he's right? What if you are paranoid? What if you are making things worse than they are? So you stay, and you try harder to prove to him that you're not crazy. You gather evidence. You document his behavior. You try to convince him that you're sane. But that's not how this works. The goal of gaslighting is not to convince someone that they're right. The goal is to make them so confused that they stay. What to do? Stop asking him to validate your reality. Here's the rule. Trust your own memory. Trust your own feelings. Trust your own instincts. If something happened and you remember it that way, then that's what happened. From your perspective, which is the only perspective that matters for your decision-making. You don't need him to agree with you. You don't need him to validate your experience. Your experience is valid because you experienced it. The moment someone starts telling you that your reality is wrong, the moment someone starts suggesting that your memory is faulty, or that you're being paranoid, or that you're imagining things, that's the moment you need to step back. Because what he's really saying is, I don't respect your perspective. I don't honor your experience. I am going to tell you what you should believe about what happened between us. And here's the test. When you bring up something that bothered you, does he acknowledge it and take responsibility, or does he deny it happened and make you the problem? If he does the latter, then he's not interested in building something with you. He's interested in controlling the narrative, and you don't need his permission to trust yourself. This doesn't mean you're inflexible or that you're unwilling to consider another perspective. It means you know the difference between I see things differently and your reality is wrong and I'm right. The first is healthy disagreement. The second is abuse disguised as correction. Number 7. Never accept his words without evidence of his actions. This is where everything comes full circle. Words are easy. Any man can say, I love you. Any man can say, you're the one. Any man can say, when things settle down, we're going to build something amazing together. Any man can talk about commitment, about exclusivity, about the future. Words cost him nothing. Actions cost something. Actions require sacrifice, consistency, vulnerability, and follow-through. And here's where women over 60 get particularly hurt. You're at an age where you've learned to value words. You've learned that communication matters. You've learned that what someone says about their feelings is important. So when a man tells you he loves you, you believe it. When he talks about the future together, you picture it. When he makes promises, you hold on to them. But you've forgotten something crucial. People who are trying to take from you will say whatever it takes to get what they want. They'll tell you that you're special. They'll tell you that you're different. They'll tell you that they've never felt this way before. They'll say all of these things while their actions stay exactly the same. Let me paint a picture of what this looks like. He tells you he loves you, but doesn't introduce you to his friends. He says you're the most important person in his life, but doesn't make space for you. He talks about a future together, but doesn't take concrete steps toward building one. He says he's committed, but doesn't follow through on plans. He promises to change, but repeats the same patterns. He tells you that you matter to him, but makes decisions that show you don't. And you're sitting there, holding on to his words, waiting for his actions to catch up. You're thinking, he said he loved me. He wouldn't have said that if he didn't mean it. He's just going through something right now. Once things settle down, he'll start acting like he loves me. But that's not how this works. If someone loves you, their actions will show it. Not eventually, not when things settle down. Now, every day, in small ways and big ways. The psychology here is simple. Actions reveal priorities, and his priorities are not you. If they were, his behavior would reflect it. But they don't. His behavior reflects that you're a comfort, you're convenient, you're helpful. You're someone he likes having around, but you're not his priority, and you're not willing to accept that, so you rephrase it. You tell yourself that he's just bad at expressing love through action. You tell yourself that he shows love differently. You tell yourself that words matter more than actions, but you don't believe any of that. You just can't stand the alternative, which is that you've invested in someone who doesn't value you the way you value them. Why this is devastating for women over 60? Because at this stage, you're not interested in games. You're not interested in potential. You're interested in present reality. You want someone who shows up now, not eventually. You want someone who integrates you into their life now, not when they're ready. You want someone who makes you a priority now, not when things are less complicated. And the fact that this man is asking you to wait, to be patient, to believe in his words while you watch his actions remain unchanged, is asking you to do something that at 60 you simply cannot afford to do. Your time is finite. Your energy is limited. Your heart doesn't have unlimited capacity for people who don't reciprocate. And you know this, so the fact that you're staying, that you're waiting, that you're holding on to his words, means that part of you is willing to sacrifice those truths just to not be alone. And that's the thing he's counting on. What to do. This is simple, but it requires you to be brutally honest. Make a list. What has he said he would do? What has he said he wants? What has he said about the future? Now look at what he's actually done. Has he done any of those things? Has he taken steps toward any of those goals? If the answer is no, or if the answer is a little bit but not really, then here's what you know. His words are not reliable. His promises are not reliable. His commitment is not reliable. And here's the hard truth. Believing his words when his actions don't support them is not faith. It's denial. There's a difference. Faith is believing in something that's real, but not yet visible. Denial is ignoring what's visible in front of you, so you don't have to face a truth you don't want to accept. So stop waiting for his actions to catch up to his words. Stop telling yourself that one day he'll show you what he says. Look at what he's showing you right now, and if what he's showing you doesn't match what he's saying, then you have a choice to make. You can choose to accept the reality of his behavior, or you can choose to keep waiting for the fantasy of his words. But you can't do both. Not anymore. Not at this stage of your life. The test is this. Close your eyes and imagine this man never changes. Imagine 10 years from now, you're still in this exact dynamic. He's still making promises without following through. He's still saying the right things and doing the wrong things. He's still keeping you waiting. Can you live with that? If the answer is no, then you already know what you have to do. The only question is whether you're brave enough to do it. This doesn't mean he's a bad person. It means he's not your person. And that's okay. That's actually good information. That's clarity. And clarity is the beginning of freedom. The truth that ties all of this together is something I need you to hold close. A man who is genuinely interested in building a life with you doesn't need you to give up your life, your money, your emotional energy, your reality, or your time to prove that you love him. He doesn't ask you to rearrange yourself to fit into his world. He shows up in yours. He doesn't exploit your goodness. He honors it. He doesn't test you. He chooses you. He doesn't confuse you. He clarifies. He doesn't ask you to accept his words without evidence. He makes his actions the proof. And here's the thing. Real love is not a trade-off. Real love is not choosing between yourself and another person. Real love is choosing yourself in a way that makes space for another person who is choosing themselves in a way that makes space for you. It's reciprocal. It's consistent. It's clear. And if you're not feeling those things, then what you're experiencing is not love. It's something else. It might feel like love. It might feel like the most important thing you've ever had. But if it requires you to abandon your own life, your own security, your own peace, and your own mind to stay in it, then it's not love. It's a cage. So let me ask you directly, what are you willing to keep? Your time, your peace, your money, your sanity, your friendships, your boundaries, your sense of self? Because here's what I know about women over 60. You've already lost enough. You've already sacrificed enough. You've already spent decades pouring yourself into relationships, into people, into situations that didn't fill you up the way they emptied you out. And at this stage of your life, you don't have to do that anymore. Your time matters. Your peace matters. Your standards matter. Your intuition matters. Your boundaries matter. Your sense of self matters. And anyone who asks you to compromise these things is not building with you. They're building on you. And you're too valuable for that. So here's what you do from this moment forward. You decide that you're going to pay attention. Not in a paranoid way, in a clear way. You're going to notice patterns. You're going to observe consistency. You're going to trust your gut. And when something feels off, instead of making excuses for it, instead of rationalizing it, instead of waiting for it to change, you're going to believe it. You're going to believe what your intuition is telling you. Because at 60, your intuition is not some fragile, unreliable thing. It's decades of wisdom. It's the accumulated knowledge of everything you've survived and learned. And if your intuition is telling you something is wrong, then something is wrong. That's not paranoia. That's clarity. And the second thing you do is this. You make yourself the priority. You start asking yourself, what do I need in this relationship? Not, what can I give? Not, what can I fix? Not, what can I do to make him want to stay? But what do I need? And then you pay attention to whether he's able and willing to provide those things. Not eventually, not with effort, but actually in his everyday behavior. Does he show up the way you need him to? Does he prioritize you the way you need to be prioritized? Does he give you consistency? Does he give you clarity? Does he give you reciprocity? If the answer is no, then he's not your person. And that's not failure, that's information. And finally, you give yourself permission to walk away. Not because he's a monster, not because there's anything wrong with you, but because you deserve someone who doesn't require you to become small to be with them. You deserve someone who doesn't need you to abandon your own life to prove your love. You deserve someone who doesn't exploit your goodness. You deserve someone who chooses you consistently, clearly, and without requiring you to do emotional gymnastics to justify his behavior. This doesn't mean never opening your heart again. This doesn't mean becoming cold or cynical or closing yourself off to love. What it means is this. You open your heart from a place of strength, not desperation. You open your heart to people who have shown you, through their actions, that they're capable of reciprocity. You open your heart knowing that you have standards and you're not negotiating them for anyone. You open your heart knowing that the most important relationship you have is with yourself, and any man who comes into your life has to respect that relationship first. Because here's the final truth. The women over 60 who are most content, most at peace, most genuinely happy in relationships are the ones who decided a long time ago that they were done abandoning themselves. They decided that their peace was more important than someone else's comfort. They decided that their standards were non-negotiable. And when the right person came along, the person who didn't need them to sacrifice anything fundamental, who didn't need them to become smaller or quieter or less themselves, they recognized him immediately. Not because he was perfect, but because with him, they didn't have to be. They could just be themselves. That's what we're building toward here. Not a relationship where you're constantly managing someone else's emotional state. Not a partnership where you're giving more than you're getting. Not a connection that requires you to doubt your own reality or rearrange your entire life, but something real, something reciprocal. Something where you don't lose yourself trying to save someone else. So, like this video, leave a comment and tell me, which of these 7 things have you given up for a man, and what would it feel like to get it back? Because every comment matters. Every story matters. Because there are women watching who need to hear from you. They need to know they're not alone in this. They need to see that other women have woken up, and they can too. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's your friend, maybe it's your sister, maybe it's a woman in your life who you can see is losing herself in a situation that doesn't deserve her. Because when you share, you're not just giving her information, you're giving her permission. Subscribe so you never miss a video designed specifically for you, and hit that notification bell because these videos are meant to come to you, not for you to have to search for them. And if this landed deep, if this video helped you see something clearly that you couldn't see before, send a super thanks, because it tells me I'm reaching the women who need this most. Here's what I need you to remember as you leave this video. You are not too old to start again. You are not too damaged to find something real. You are not too much, and you are not too available, and you are not too broken. You are a woman over 60 with decades of wisdom, and you deserve a man who recognizes that. You deserve someone who doesn't need to break you down to feel big. You deserve someone who doesn't need to confuse you to keep you close. You deserve someone who is genuinely interested in building something with you, not taking something from you. And if you're in a situation right now where any of these 7 things are happening, I need you to know this. You're not weak for seeing it. You're not naive for hoping. You're not stupid for believing him. You're human. But now you have words for it. Now you have language for what you've been sensing. And language is the first step to freedom. The second step is action. And the third step is peace. You deserve that peace. Walk toward it.